Hey everyone, we're going to be starting in a couple of minutes. How is everyone doing on this Friday, July 4th? If you can hear me, go ahead and introduce yourself in the YouTube chat. You can write down, where you're logging from, how did you hear about this, what do you do, and all that good stuff. Uh, okay, let me get the link, share it also. Mm, yeah. All right. Let's see over here. Okay. Still, we're going to wait for a couple of minutes. If you can hear me, you can introduce yourself in the YouTube chat. Thomas, how are you doing? Where are you logging in from, Thomas? Are you from US or some other country? And if you do have any questions, since this is the Ask Me Anything session, you can simply post it on YouTube chat. And if I know the answer, I'll give the answer. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Simple. All right. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Robert is joining from El Paso, Texas. It's kind of weird. I was just looking at El Paso, Texas, because I wanted to go to White Sands National Park, which is, I think, an hour and a half drive from El Paso, Texas. So I was looking into that. So, yeah, in New Mexico. All right, so we're getting our first question from December. And the first question, before I go with the first question, let me just introduce myself also. My name is Mohammad Azam, and I go with my by my last name, which is Azam. I do host these Ask Me Anything sessions, sometime bi-weekly, sometime monthly. It's always fun to host these. And for full time, I work for a coding boot camp called Digital Crafts, where I teach web development. I also teach machine learning and AI using, Python. And on the side, I do a lot of iOS work. I have a YouTube channel that you can check out. I also run my own website, which is Azam Sharp School, and that is where I post a lot of my courses, individual videos for members. I also do workshops, and I recently just started also doing one-on-one coaching also. All right. So there's a lot of stuff. You should definitely check out Azam Sharp School. We have a growing community, a lot of members. So that's definitely a great place to get started with iOS development. All right. Okay. So we'll start with the first question. First question is from, it says December, but it says, is SwiftUI production ready? Because I feel navigation is a bit more complicated for large projects. Yeah, it's definitely production ready. Navigation does feel kind of weird because, um, well, because you have to, if you want to do it programmatically, then you will have to utilize like a router pattern and these kind of things. And I have over here, I wrote a very detailed article on navigation patterns, which you might find helpful. So here is the article on navigation patterns. Um, so the article actually talks about, as you can see, the article talks about basic list navigation, and then it kind of jumps into dynamic programmatic routing, and it shows you like different ways that you can actually set up routing, like a enum based routing. So it goes into more detail of how you can implement those things. It also talks about tab view routing that you can do. So it's a pretty detailed article, as you can see, and you can read the article and get some idea of different techniques that you are going to be using when you want to work on a larger application with SwiftUI. All right, so hopefully this will be helpful. Abdul Basit is saying, shall I not bother learning Swift and just use cursor or vibe coding, building apps and deploy really quick? You know, I have done vibe coding for one of the apps, and I didn't really enjoy the experience because, to be really honest, I wasn't sure what I was writing. I mean, everything was working correctly. It was a maps application, and I was able to do it in like a couple of hours. But I don't think that when we write software, we only write software for that day or for that hour. We always have to come back and change and modify different things. And maybe you can vibe code stuff, which is fine, but a lot of decisions that you copy paste from ChatGPT or Cursor or whatever, Claude or whatever, those are not carefully uh, thought out things. So a lot of programming problems, when they are, a complicated problem, require a lot of critical thinking. So I do use ChatGPT, but I use it for mainly as a reference, um, and not as a copy pasting vibe coding things. So I think this vibe coding is gonna cool down, and I think eventually they will realize that all the code they they vibe coded may not be able to be maintained, because it was literally the person was just copy pasting and then running and then copy pasting and then running, and no idea what the code was actually doing. So I think it's very important, and nowadays it has become even more important to understand the code that you're writing. So use these tools with, with a lot of care, I guess, or be worried about the consequences that's going to happen. All right, yeah, you will be able to create something really quickly, but when you go back again a day or 2 days or a week after to modify something, then you'll be like, okay, hold on a second. What is this code doing? I don't even know because I didn't write it. So those things will become very important. All right. All right. Let's see over here. If you do have any All right. If you do have any questions, you can just post it on the YouTube chat. All right. Any other questions? And if you're just joining in, you can introduce yourself in YouTube chat. You can just, type in your name. You can, and also like where are you, where are you from, and so on. Should you limit API calls when using tab view? Should I not get the data every time I switch tabs? Yeah, I think it would be a good idea to cache that data, uh, so that you're not, if the data is not really changing, there's no point of getting the data. So you will have to, you will have to look at different ways of caching the data. Like if it's a JSON data, then you will have to, I think, URL cache and all those things. You will have to check that how you can cache the JSON data and how the server is responding with the headers. Is it returning e tag, or is it returning something else that is, or cache headers? Um, and for images, images will definitely help. All right. If you're caching images, that is definitely going to help performance, especially in the list view. So that is definitely going to help you. All right. The question is, what's your thoughts on iOS 26, the liquid glass design? I haven't really checked out that much of the sessions for liquid glass design. I think my main focus have been foundation models, and I recently published a very detailed article on foundation models. That is the only thing that I was focused on. But yes, I will be going through uh, a lot of WWDC sessions. But from the looks of it, I mean, I guess it's a different design. I think it needed an update because I think the last design was what iOS like long time ago, right? It was when everything got flat. So it was a really long time ago. So now they are coming up with this liquid design, and I think the one things that they have shown in the in the beta version or even in WWDC, maybe some of them will be a little bit trimmed down. Trimmed down means like the effects that they're doing, they might like reduce those effects so that people can actually read the text and everything. So those will be so that is what I think about. I mean, I think I still have to go through the liquid glass design and create some apps and see how it looks. Yeah. But yeah, foundation model, I think for me, it was like the biggest thing was foundation models that was released in, iOS 26. So that was fun to play around with. It's a little bit limited right now. It only has 4096 tokens, which is not a lot for input and output. Um, and it doesn't really act nicely with if you're doing some sort of text base, you're providing it text and then asking question regarding that text. So it doesn't work nicely with those things. I mean, it may be able to answer those things, but it still is kind of, you know, brittle. It can fail. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, if you're just joining in, if you have any questions, you can just post it on YouTube chat, and I'll be able to check out your question and answer those questions. And these questions can be anything. It can be about like if you Like if you want to publish a course, if you want to some career advice and all those kind of things, if you want to learn Python, if you want to learn server side something or server programming. All right. Let me see over here. All right. Yeah, and if someone wants to introduce themselves, you can also introduce yourself on the chat. All right. Is the boot is the bootcamp you have on Udemy the same as what is available as a subscriber? Bootcamp like the courses? Um, I'm not sure what you mean by bootcamp, but I think most of the well, the courses on Udemy are similar to the courses on my own website, but I provide on Azam Sharp School, I provide more updates and sometimes I add more content and the questions or customer service is much better over there. So I'm able to answer questions much quickly as compared to Udemy. Um, I think that's a question. I mean, that's the difference in those things. So it's kind of like Adam Sharp School is more of like a premium thing, like where you get content much quickly, you get updated content, or as soon as I can update, I guess. Some of the content is also exclusive. I think if you look over here, so this content, if I go and open it up, which is only for members, so these are kind of like individual videos that I post, and these are actually a lot of videos. So you can see uh, lots of videos over here are available exclusively. Now, eventually, these videos will make their way to maybe a YouTube channel or something like that, but it takes a little bit of time to get it there. All right. What is the best way to learn and practice solid principles in iOS? Well, what I've seen is that if you're working on an iOS project, and if you're applying, if the solid principle is saying you have to create layers for every single thing, then your project will become way more complicated as it's supposed to be. I'm not saying that the solid principles are bad or anything, but you have to decide when to introduce those things and which projects will benefit from it. Because if you just try to introduce solid principles, just try to like jam the solid principles forcefully into your project, then that project you know, will accumulate a lot of code, uh, which is not good because that will be a lot of technical debt that you're accumulating over time. So that's, I think, my problem with the solid principles is that, these are principles, um, and it's not like a hard line that you have to follow these things. And most of the time, for at least for iOS projects, if you follow those things, then you will get into trouble because now you have like 30 different layers you have to pass the data to display something on the screen. Because you have to also realize that SwiftUI, React, Flutter, Jetpack, Compose, they are very powerful reactive frameworks, and they will work really nicely if you try to use them the way that they're designed to be used. But what most of the people actually do, they just wrap it with so many different layers that it completely kills the reactiveness of those frameworks. So even if you're learning SwiftUI, I would say try to just use plain vanilla SwiftUI, try to see how that works. And if you use it correctly, you'll see that everything will work seamlessly in your application. Okay. Yes, yeah. I mean, some of the courses, Tommy, you will find, they're over there, over here. So, that's. Can you create a course on ML, AI, data science for getting started or career searching for iOS developers? Actually, I already have a course for AI and machine learning. Let me see over here. Mm, I think there's a, yeah, there we go. So this particular course uses machine learning in iOS using Create ML. So that's one of the courses that I have. Let me actually share this with you. And what I've experienced since I actually teach iOS, I mean, since I also teach machine learning with Python, what I've experienced is that the tools that are available in Python are way advanced, light years ahead of what we're using in iOS. Like you can use Create ML app, but you can use Create ML API also, and it is just painful to work with. I think it might be because of the Swift language itself, but I find Python to be a really nice language to work with machine learning, and I think that's why it's the number one language for machine learning. The other tool that I have, which is a brand new course that I released, is this one. This is this one, which is deploying machine learning model. Now, this is kind of like an interesting course, this one, because what I show you is all the things that I just talked about. This course kind of show you that how you can use Python with scikit-learn, with pandas, with what's the other one? The Jupyter Notebook. So everything related to pandas to train your model, which is a car pricing car pricing model, used car pricing model, and train the model, validate the model, everything, and then export the model using Core ML tools so that you can use it in your iOS application. So I talk about how you can integrate it into iOS application, but then I even go one step further by showing you how you can host your model using Vapor. All right, so that is actually really interesting part of when you have a core ML model, which is ML model file, you can host it using Vapor, which also means that you can just update the model without updating the app because now it's hosted on the server. So this course actually goes through a lot of details about how you can do all of those different things. I think this is a really good course, and there is no course available that actually teaches you in detail how to do all of these steps because these steps can be very complicated. But it does use Python, scikit-learn. So if you don't know Python, well, you will have to probably learn it. And if you are trying to learn Python, let me find. I have a brand new playlist that I'm working on. It's not done yet. I'm calling it Python Bootcamp. How do I even share it? It's always a. So I have been working on this Python Bootcamp. These are just YouTube videos that you can watch. It's not completed yet. There are 16 videos, and there will be many more videos. It's for learning Python. All right, so you can definitely use that if you want. But yeah, that course is pretty good. This one, but it does use Python. All right. If you're looking for uh, Swift, then that course will be at the bottom right there. This is the one that uses Create ML and it uses Swift. So it's a little bit different course. All right. Any other questions, anyone? I am new to SwiftUI. I'm using segmented view. On each segment, click loading different view, and in task calling API in each view. Okay. So for segmented view, I guess you are, whenever you press a segmented view, you use that to, you know, make a API call, I guess, because each view is getting displayed. Um, usually, usually it is a good idea to, let me actually see, let me see if I can, all right. So I'm not going to be writing actual code over here, all right. But when clicking again, segmented API call, all right. Yeah, well, when you click on a segmented view and you kind of like show a view or you display, I guess, a different view, loading a different view, whenever the view loads the first time, the task modifier is going to get called. Um, that's just how the view or the task modifier actually works. Now, one of the things that you can actually do is, or one of the things you can try to do is when you click a segmented view, so if I say segmented view on change, right? I'm just gonna write over here on change or whatever. You can get like which segmented view you clicked or tap, get the data. So you get the data, and then you can kind of like pass down the data to the child view. I think that's usually the flow in SwiftUI, that the parent, which I think in this case, the parent view will be the view that contains the segmented view. When you click on the parent, maybe the parent can go and download the data for whichever view that you clicked on and then pass it down to the child data. That also makes your child views reusable, because now you can simply, in different view, you can call the child view by passing in uh, an array of customers or whatever you're trying to do. Like if one is customer, one is users, one is bank accounts or so. So usually it's a good idea to do the operation of fetching inside the parent view, obviously using HTTP client and all that, and getting the data and simply passing the data down to the child view instead of the child view getting the data itself. All right, so that is going to definitely help in those cases. Mohammed Mustafa is asking, what are the top 5 areas I should focus on in iOS development with SwiftUI? Well, I think if you are comfortable with SwiftUI, if you have already created some apps with SwiftUI and different kind of apps, like I always try to tell people that it's a good idea to create clone apps. Like Apple has a lot of apps on their, on your device. So you can actually use stocks, like stock app, maybe weather app, I don't know, news app, task or reminders app. I think it's called reminders. So once you're comfortable building all of these kind of apps, I think the next area you can focus on, I like to do backend development. So backend development can be a really good area to focus on. All right. And if you want to stay in iOS world, then you can use Vapor. All right. If you want to not stay in the iOS world, then there are unlimited number of options. You can use Express.js, you can use Flask, you can use Rails and so on. But I think if you just want to stay in iOS, then Vapor is a great choice. So I would start with backend development. um, if you are already comfortable with the basics of SwiftUI and you have already created apps with that. So there is nothing like view.load that we have on UI kit. Well, we don't have view.load. You have on appear that's going to fire every time, and you have task modifier which is going to fire once when the view loads, and you can perform async operation in that. So call the API in parent for all 4 tabs and pass the data to the child. Well, you will call the API when the person selects a tab or the segmented control, that particular segment, and only then fetch the data at that point, right? So don't fetch all the data for every single tab. You can fetch the data, and and now you're saying tabs. I think eventually, initially you were saying segmented control. So, so it's going to be different. I mean, tabs are usually screens, right? Tabs are at the bottom, so it's a different thing. If you have tabs, then it becomes different because when you click a tab, you show a screen. You click this tab, you show screen number 2. You click this tab, you screen number 3. If it's a tab, then the screen that you show, this one, and then in the view modifier, you can call that. That's perfectly fine. If it's a segmented control or a segmented view, which is I think what you said initially, then it will be a good idea to do the fetching in the parent and pass the data down. Okay, segmented control. So segmented control, if you have a segmented control like this, whatever this particular parent view is, I would, when you click a segment, I would just perform a HTTP call, get the data, push the data down to the smaller view. All right, so this is how I would do it in segmented controls. All right. All right, any other questions? In SwiftUI, I'm confused when to create a custom view modifier or a reusable view. So view modifier, well, you can actually do 3 things because you can do a view modifier, right? You can do a view modifier. You can do an extension to the view, and you can create a custom view. So view modifier, I usually create view modifiers in cases where I want to, there are some already, we have views and I need to add some additional features to a particular view, but I also want to use the state. Then I will use a view modifier. I would create an extension. Again, extension does the same thing, which is I'm going to, if I have a view, this can be a button view, or this can be a view itself, like the view struct itself, and I just want to add something like rounded. Like if I want to add like whatever view I have, let's say some view, whatever. If I just want to add like a rounded property to the view, the rounded property or the rounded view modifier, if I want to add, that doesn't really have anything to do with the state. I mean, I'm not really maintaining any state in that, so I would use that over here for just the view extension. And then come the last one, which is a custom view. Now, a custom view basically means that your view is completely custom. So, maybe I want to create a view called star rating. And when you display that, like if you want to display that, you will display, I don't know how to display a star over here. Let's say, here we go, right? So if I want to create like a star rating or some sort of a view that will always have this particular shape, like displaying star, so that is for, I will use star rating. All right. So I think the main question becomes between the view modifier, when to use the view modifier, when to use the extension. Um, Again, you can use both of them interchangeably, but I think the main benefits of the view modifier you get is that you can also handle state in there. So if you have some sort of view modifier that you're trying to build which requires state, then you will have to, if you're trying to build a function that can be done with extension or the view modifier, but it handles the state, then you should probably use a view modifier. All right. But if you are building a something completely custom, then obviously it will be custom view, like a star rating view. I don't know what other things you can make custom. I mean, anything can be made custom these days. So you can have like anything you want. All right. And I think for custom view, the reusability also becomes a very important factor, because when you create something like a custom view, in your mind, you're saying that, oh, I'm going to reuse this somewhere else also. All right. Or else you'll just put that in one view. So that's also important. All right. Any questions? Let's see over here. All right. Any other questions? So for apps where button is in capsule form, only the color and size are different. In most cases, we can create custom view. Well, I think in those cases, if you are always going to be using that, if the button is in a capsule form and only the color and size are different, you can actually use view extensions in those cases, or even a custom view, because custom view might be a better choice in this case, because now you're saying that those buttons will always be in the capsule. So those are like a special type of button, like you can call it capsule button, right? So that is perfectly fine to use a completely custom view for those things. All right. Why the task is calling again when coming back to the detail page? That's because you're coming back to the detail page. So once you go to the detail page, it is added, I guess, in the navigation controller or in the navigation stack. And then when you go back and then come back again, then it's added again. So it's removed and then added again. But it will be fired once. All right. Once when it actually does get added to the navigation controller, and after that it's not really going to get fired unless you remove it from the navigation stack and then add it back again. All right. I think there were some people who created a view modifier for task, and they were making sure that it's just call only once, even if you're moving between pages. Does using UIKit components like UI hosting controller and UI navigation controller along with the coordinator pattern still offer a reliable solution for managing navigation in SwiftUI, or are they different now? I wouldn't do that. I would not use UIKit to manage my navigation. Um, I would use the built-in navigation that is provided by SwiftUI. And if you want programmatic navigation, then you can probably look at this article that I have. Keep in mind that a lot of people have this misunderstanding where when they add navigation to the view, they are basically saying, oh, I shouldn't be adding this navigation to the view because it's a view. It should only be displaying the view. It should not have any presentation logic. That is a wrong way of thinking about SwiftUI. SwiftUI view is not really a view, it's already a view model. Having said that, I'm not saying that you should just start dumping all your code into a SwiftUI view. All right. If you're performing some sort of a HTTP operation, then you should use HTTP client. If you want global state or even local state, not local state, but if you want something to be shared with a lot of your different screens, then you're looking at environment object. So all of those things are still valid, but the view, if you look at the view, if we look at even this view, let me actually zoom in a little bit. See this view, even in this view, this is the actual definition of what will be displayed on the screen, but it's not actually displaying anything on the screen. This is just declaring that this is the definition of things that will be displayed. So it's not even uh, painting any pixels on the screen to say that, because behind the list, it's using a UI collection view. If you are using a a toggle, there's something else being used over there that I think a UI switch control and so on. So the only part that is declaring your what is displayed on the screen is the body part. Everything else is basically your view model anyways. All right. I would not mix the navigation from UIKit to SwiftUI. There are completely different frameworks, and the way that they work is also completely different. For most of the apps, you can simply get around with adding adding a navigation destination right within your screens, not views. Screens. Screen is a larger container which contains the views, and the screens can just go from one screen to the other. Keeping in mind that navigation destination is used for dynamic navigation. If you are performing your navigation like a list base, then you can just use code like this and you'll be, I mean, not like this, sorry, I think, where is it? Like this, and that will be perfectly fine. There's no problem with this, right? So you can use code like this also, which will perform a list navigation from parent to detail. But if you want to do some sort of a dynamic or programmatic routing, which means that maybe the user logged in and based on the login status, if the person logs in, then you need to send them to a different page, then in those cases you can perform dynamic navigation, um, using navigation destination. So that can also work, all right? But I've tried a lot of different approaches, adding the navigation thing right in my actual screen. That works fine. If you are having a larger application, you want to maintain it in a certain way, then you can actually create a route, which is enum, and then you can perform navigation also that way. All right. So there are many different ways. Each one have their own advantages and disadvantages. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed with SwiftUI is when you are trying to be very smart and you're trying to create these like different abstractions, then the SwiftUI doesn't really like it and it makes it very hard to work. So be careful when you try to be very smart and add those different things to perform navigation. You can read the article that I linked. That will explain how I mean, explain different ways of performing navigation. All right. And some of these things that I've discussed is inspired by React navigation, where they use hooks to perform navigation. So I think over here, uh, yeah, right here, see that? Eventually, I come up with this navigate, which is a environment value, and then if I want to navigate, I'd simply use navigate to the patient list screen. So that can work in cases, where you have to go from one view to the other view programmatically. So that also works. All right, everyone. Any other questions? And I think I've done, let me actually see if I can find that talk. I've done a lot of talks on SwiftUI architecture. So let me see if I can find it. Here it is. This one probably. So this is my talk from 2024, November probably. And this was in Amsterdam, SwiftUI architecture. So you can definitely check out this talk. It's available on YouTube, and it talks about SwiftUI architecture and different lessons that I have learned over the course of 3 or 4 whatever years. It's I think the most viewed talk from this Do iOS conference, so you will definitely enjoy it hopefully. And it covers not only the architecture itself; it covers a lot of other things. So definitely uh, check out this talk when you get time. All right. All right. Any other question, anyone? All right. Looks like we don't really have any other questions. So yeah, if you do have any other question, you can write in the YouTube chat. If you don't, then all right, there's another question. What about ARKit future? So ARKit is pretty much like replaced by Reality Kit. So Reality Kit is Reality Kit is kind of like I think created from the ground up, so from scratch, and I think that will be the future for Reality Kit or anything with augmented reality. Obviously, you have that Vision Pro framework and everything, which is used for Vision Pro devices. Um, but if you just want to do any kind of augmented reality development, then Reality Kit is the way to go. Where would you recommend starting to look at backend development? Well, if you want to stay in the world of Swift, then Vapor is a Vapor.codes. Vapor is a great framework that you can use. I do have some courses on Vapor as well as Express. I actually like Express better, but the reason I like Express better is because I've been using it for quite some time now. All right, so that's why I like it better. It's JavaScript, so you have to know JavaScript if you want to use Express. If you don't want to learn JavaScript and stay in the world of Swift and iOS, then Vapor is a great choice also. So you can check out Vapor. All right. And yeah, I do have courses on uh, Vapor as well as Express.js. What about game development in iOS Sprite Kit? I don't know about anything about game development. I know that I've done some game development very long time ago, but I don't have any interest in Sprite Kit or whatever the other frameworks were. I think there was Sprite Kit and there were Scene Kit, not Scene Kit, but something else, right? Like for 2D games. But I don't really have any courses on game development, and currently there are no plans to also make any course on game development because I mean, I just don't have any interest in those things. It's all about the interest. All right, any other questions? And let's see the workshops. I think there's one workshop that is coming up, which is on Introduction to Server-Side Swift. That will be on August 22nd. So if you want to register, you can definitely register for that. All right. What about Swift 6.2? Um, they're not much. I mean, yeah, I think that they did added some concurrency things in Swift 6.2 and all that stuff, but you know, it's not much. It's not much that much change, I guess. Or you may not really see those changes unless you're using those features. But yeah, concurrency is a big thing that is changing again and again. All right, everyone. So I think we're going to wrap it up over here. There were some good questions asked. It was fun, and I'll try to host this, more regularly. And if you want to follow me on Twitter or X as they call it now, let me see if I can. Then you can go to x.com/azamsharp. You can follow me over there. There we go. Okay. And you already know my website, azamsharp.school. That's where I post all the stuff, workshops, and even one-on-one coaching. Okay. Kumar is saying, I'm finding hard navigating iOS developer job market. Is iOS development oversaturated because of AI? I have 10 plus years of experience and I'm finding very hard to land a job. It's definitely, it's not only iOS, I think it's everywhere. Like the whole industry, programming, development, anything with technology is down. And I think AI might be, yeah, AI is definitely contributing to it, because what employers are saying that, hey, we can just use AI to build these things. We'll just have to wait and see what happens, because I I think it's going to reach some sort of a tipping point where they will eventually realize that we also need great experience developers, because a lot of things in the business world, in real world, requires critical thinking, which AI is not really able to perform, right? So those are the things I think. Yeah, but the job market is definitely uh, tough. It's it's rough out there. Yes. All right. All right, everyone. That is pretty much all the time we have for today. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming, and I will see you next time. So, thank you, everyone, and bye.